Hi folks, buckle up because the only thing more unstable than geopolitics is the Democrat Party's grip on reality. We've officially entered the era where merit is racist, crime is compassion, and equity is just a fancy word for legalized discrimination, as long as it's wrapped in a progressive bow. Today's clips are a crash course in cognitive dissonance, starring the usual suspects, morally superior liberals who preach about justice while casually reinventing apartheid. Case in point, Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson, who apparently thinks the best way to fix slavery is to reintroduce segregation, just with better marketing. Welcome to the woke Olympics, where victimhood as currency and logic gets canceled for being a bit too problematic. Let's dive in.
Our way will bring to black residents in reclaiming ownership of our own communities. That is the spirit of Juneteenth, you all. It is about reflecting on our past. Other cultures are taught to never forget. We need to be reminded as blacks here in Chicago and America, remembering our past and working towards a more just future. Investing in black is not a criminal act. Sister Zakiya says she need a witness. So I'm gonna say it again. Investing in black is not a criminal act.
You know, when Martin Luther King talked about judging people by the content of the character, he clearly meant melanin content, not moral content. At least if you ask Chicago's leadership. Because in 2025, we're watching the civil rights dream collapse under the weight of race essentialism dressed up as justice. Mayor Brandon Johnson's plan to hand out grants purely based on race isn't progress, it's regression with a little bit better progressive branding. This isn't about repairing the past. It's about institutionalizing a new caste system under the guise of equity. And the rhetoric is just as dishonest as the policy. Investing in black isn't a crime, is a manipulative straw man no one argued in the first place. But that's the trick, isn't it? Redefine fairness as prejudice, then accuse anyone who notices of bigotry. This is what happens when academia, media, and government all speak the same ideological dialect. One that replaces shared leadership with racial entitlement and moral nuance with tribal slogans. Reparations aren't being pursued as part of a thoughtful national conversation. They're being used as a political payoff and emotional leverage to keep grievance on life support. The real crime here isn't who gets the money. It's how the left keeps impoverishing public discourse in the name of justice. And speaking of impoverishing public discourse, Democrat state assembly members in California, who are better known for their affinity for maps, that being minor attracted people, well, they recently announced this very interesting measure that does not sound politically motivated at all.
Yeah, if I can just elaborate, people covering their faces, impersonating police officers, it erodes trust in law enforcement and it undermines community safety. That's really what this bill is about. And I think many law enforcement officials, legitimate law enforcement officials, would welcome putting in safeguards to ensure transparency and accountability. And I think the concern is a lot that's happening. There are a lot of people who are engaged in these enforcement actions, and we don't know, are they federal? Are they contractors? Are they local law enforcement? And so we're requiring that people not have to wear masks except for some very limited exceptions, and that there be identifying information ensures that we know who is involved here. It's also critical to uphold our state and local laws, including our sanctuary law, SB 54, which says that local law enforcement are not going to be involved in immigration enforcement. So this is, I think, furthering the state's efforts to ensure legitimate law enforcement purposes and to protect Californians.
You know, when Democrats start talking about transparency and accountability, that the issue is actually something completely different. Because if there's one party that's made it a career out of avoiding both, it's the Democrats. This new push in California to ban law enforcement officers from covering their faces isn't about public safety. It's about political targeting. The same activists who spent the past few weeks doxing ICE agents, stalking them at hotels, and inciting mobs during riots are now demanding a clearer shot of ICE agents' faces. This is the weaponization of transparency, not to inform the public, but to intimidate and neutralize those tasked with enforcing laws the left refuses to enforce. The irony is that California protects the anonymity of violent protesters, protects criminals under sanctuary policies, and even lets masked Antifa thugs roam the streets, but suddenly draws the line at a badge and a balaclava. This isn't a safety measure. It's a message. Federal authority is unwelcome in California, and those who enforce it will be exposed. What we're watching is the inversion of justice, where the enforcers are hunted and the lawbreakers are protected by state policy. It reveals how deep the ideological capture runs across California's institutions and just how far the left is willing to go to undermine national sovereignty under the false flag of accountability. And to take it a step further, needless to say, this is an absolute exercise in futility, because state law can never supersede federal law, the law of the land. So congratulations, Democrats. You guys have just figured out a new way to virtue signal, this time at the cost of the California taxpayer. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I'm paying for your salary, schmucks. And speaking of schmucks, Democrat Jamie Raskin, who's still looking for his neck, is out here throwing more gasoline on the fire, trying to make sure that riots pop up all over the country, because LA wasn't enough.
But now he's pivoting to just make it a war against democratic cities. And he's not even talking about immigration so much anymore. He just wants those scenes of violent confrontation between a federalized National Guard or the Marines and people who live in cities that have Democratic mayors or states that have Democratic governors. I mean, that's much more of an agenda to create a political civil war in America. And that's exactly what the vast majority of American people don't want.
Whoa, slow down there, Jimmy. Take a breath from all the hysteria. Leave some time for the grandmas at home to make themselves some soup before her Democrat-induced heart attack. This kind of breathless fear-mongering is exactly what the left accuses the right of. But somehow, when they do it, it's called defending democracy. Raskin's claim that enforcing immigration law is a war against Democrat cities isn't just unhinged. It's straight up projection. For years, the left has defied federal law with sanctuary policies, blocked deportations, and shielded violent criminals under the guise of compassion. Now, when the federal government actually attempts to restore order, it's labeled an act of civil war. What we're seeing is the logical endpoint of a political movement that conflates law enforcement with fascism and equates basic national sovereignty with tyranny. The real danger isn't that Trump is escalating a conflict. It's that Democrats like Raskin have so thoroughly radicalized their base that basic governance is now treated as an existential threat. This isn't about immigration anymore. It's about control. And the left is terrified of losing its monopoly on narrative, especially in the cities it's run into the ground, like Los Angeles. And when they run out of things to say, they just start making stuff up. And you need to look no further than this Washington Post / MSDNC contributor who had this to say.
What are you doing?
So it's especially upsetting given that there are actual ICE agents who are showing up masked, won't show their they won't show their faces, they won't show identification, they won't show a warrant, and they're just snatching people off the streets. And one thing that I have been hearing from people who are bystanders or sometimes trying to intervene is, how do we know these guys didn't just buy an ICE vest off of
you don't know if
eBay or Amazon or whatever.
Militias out there doing this.
And like, we don't know if these are the Proud Boys or actual law enforcement agents because they won't show us any documentation. And you're saying you interviewed a guy who this is his shtick.
So let me see if I get this straight. Democrats are now seriously comparing pranksters who show up to political events in ICE jackets from Amazon to actual federal agents tasked with enforcing immigration law. And somehow the concern isn't about criminal impersonation, but about whether ICE is being too mean to sanctuary cities. Legacy media figures like Catherine Rampell aren't just blurring the line between parody and policy. They're actively smearing law enforcement by equating them with domestic extremists, all to drum up fear and delegitimize federal authority. This isn't journalism, by the way. It's straight up propaganda designed to terrify the public, radicalize blue city voters, and undermine any effort at restoring the rule of law. And it works, because they know their audience is primed to distrust anything associated with Trump or borders. The broader issue here isn't even ICE agents wearing masks. It's that we live in a country where enforcing immigration law is treated like an act of war, while aiding and abetting illegal entry is framed as moral virtue. This hysteria reveals just how far the left's ideological capture has spread through media and academia. Facts are purely optional. Emotions are weaponized, and anyone who challenges a narrative is painted as a fascist. But look, there's no better moment than when the left's ideological capture meets the cold hard truth of reality. And a couple of days ago, we looked at how a group of Queers for Palestine went to Egypt to try to march into Gaza and were met with the brutal reality of the Middle East. Well, there's this new clip that has just resurfaced of some of these activists confronting Egyptian police. And you're not going to believe what one of them told them.
Everybody listen!
Please listen to me.
Your name, please. Yes, brother, speak. Can you declare yourself?
Hold on.
He doesn't need to.
We are the police and we are announcing through our police, okay?
Respect the country.
Please respect our country and listen to us.
Total respect.
We are
We just
announcing.
asking with politeness. I can go. Listen. I can with total respect. I can go. Okay.
You can't stay. This is against this country law. You can't stay there.
We can't stay here.
I am
And you so that I own two sticks.
You suppose all respect our country and our law. Okay? So your message has been already received and you can go back and turn back to Cairo. We're supposed to arrange all of that.
We could do it in America.
Okay.
Why can't we do it here?
What are you doing here?
The patience this police officer has is admirable because this is next level Western entitlement. To march into a sovereign country like Egypt and demand they bend their laws to your expectations because we can do it in America is a perfect snapshot of how cultural imperialism has gone woke. It's not colonialism with guns anymore. It's colonialism with hashtags and identity politics. This is what happens when generations are raised to believe that their personal expression overrides every boundary, that activism means exporting their worldview into spaces that never consented to host it. The fact that a guest in another nation sees law enforcement asking for basic compliance as oppression tells you everything about how hollow the Western understanding of respect, responsibility, and cultural humility has become. And it's no accident. Academia, media, and activist networks have trained people like this man to see every limit as a form of injustice, unless, of course, that limit is imposed by the left. So when the global left talks about decolonization, just remember, they're not against empire. They just want to be the ones running it. And speaking of running it, this father's got nothing running his brain. And I'm not exaggerating. Just hear him speak.
One last personal fact. Most trans kids know that they're trans between the ages of 3 and 7.
Oh my God.
My daughter knew around 2.5.
What?
She knew. I didn't. I often tell my kids that I'm not smarter than you. I just know different things. And the things that our kids know that we don't, those are the things that make all the difference and the ones we should really listen to. My child is not mentally ill. To begin gender-affirming care, she had to speak to more healthcare professionals than probably anyone in this room ever has.
The fact that this father said that last line unironically, bragging that his toddler spoke to more mental health professionals than anyone in the room without realizing he was basically confirming a serious psychological issue, is a kind of cognitive dissonance that defines our cultural collapse. Because since when is a 2-year-old's passing whim treated as gospel truth, especially when it comes to something as complex and irreversible as a gender transition? Toddlers also think they're dinosaurs, pirates, puppies. But now if a boy picks up a Barbie, we call the endocrinologist. This isn't about compassion. It's ideological grooming masquerading as parenting. And it didn't come out of nowhere. It's a byproduct of decades of academia undermining developmental science, media normalizing radical identity narratives, and activists such as this one rewriting biology to validate their worldview through children. This is what happens when adults outsource their authority to the emotional whims of a 2-year-old, then wrap it in therapeutic jargon to shield themselves from any sort of responsibility. We're not just medicalizing childhood confusion, we're sanctifying it. And it says less about what the child believes and everything about what the parent needs to believe in order to feel righteous. And the left's righteousness didn't stop there, folks, because it never does. This chick decided to sing the national anthem at the Dodgers game in Spanish while wearing a t-shirt with the flag of a foreign country. I mean, why the hell do you even live here?
It's okay. We are going to do the song in English today, so I'm not sure if it's that wasn't or if that wasn't relayed.
Bear with me because I'm still very shooken up. And emotional, and I just got home from singing the national anthem in Spanish at the Dodgers game, and it is the official Star-Spangled Banner in Spanish. You can Google it. I'll just read it to you really quick, but it was officially commissioned in 1945 by the U.S. State Department as a part of President Franklin Roosevelt's Good Neighbor policy to foster a better relationship with Latin America. Because of this, I didn't think I would be met with any sort of no, especially because we're in LA and with everything happening. And I've sang the national anthem many times in my life, but there was today out of all days, I could not. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just could not believe when she walked in and told me no, but I just felt like I needed to do it. Para mi gente. For anyone who's been following me for a while, everything I do is out of love, out of love, good energy, out of love, and I'm proud of myself.
Oh, good for you.
Doing that today.
Oh, so brave.
My parents are immigrants.
You don't say.
They've been citizens my whole life at this point. They got documented really early, but I just can't imagine them being ripped away from me, even at this age.
Oh my God,
let alone,
bro.
a little kid.
Jesus
what are we
Christ.
doing? Anyways. Sorry, this is a whole different side of me that y'all never see, but
apology not accepted.
Thank you for all the sweet messages. I love you guys so much.
We don't love you back.
Safe to say I'm never allowed in that stadium ever again, but I love you guys so much. I love you guys.
Folks, it is our duty as a generation to put an end to front-facing crying camera confessional videos because, man, this performance is peak cringe. What we just witnessed wasn't bravery. It was a one-woman TED Talk on emotional exhibitionism dressed up as activism, singing the national anthem in Spanish after being explicitly told not to isn't a noble stand. It's defiance cloaked in self-congratulation. And tying it to ICE raids in a city that openly defies immigration law is pure theater. This isn't about love, it's about optics. It's about turning every moment into a moral branding opportunity where the highest form of virtue is ignoring rules, crying on cue, and framing it all as a deep expression of identity. And let's not forget the sleight of hand here. Citing FDR's good neighbor policy doesn't make you Rosa Parks. It means you can Google. This is the spiritual rot of our age, where obedience to feelings has replaced fidelity to truth, and public spaces become platforms for narcissistic grievance rituals. When everything becomes an act of personal storytelling, we lose our shared sense of meaning. And that's exactly where the cultural left thrives, in the chaos between rules and raw emotion. So the question isn't just what's happening in America, it's why we're being conditioned to celebrate it. Why is rebellion against the order now sold as compassion? Why is emotional spectacle mistaken for moral courage? And why, in a time of collapsing trust and rising dysfunction, are we told that the highest virtue is to feel deeply rather than think clearly? These aren't isolated moments. They're symptoms of a culture that rewards identity over integrity, performance over principle, and chaos over coherence. If we don't start asking who benefits from this confusion and what we're losing in the process, we risk becoming a people so enamored with our own reflection that we forget how to see objective reality at all. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.